Hello again. Back to our our presentation here. Now we have Shafinas Sopan with us. She will present the project Farm. And yes, I just give to you and then you can introduce yourself. During the whole presentation, you can ask her questions, and therefore you just need the Mentimeter link here. So feel free to ask and have fun.
Thank you, Philip. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Shafinas Sopan. I'm from Bangladesh, and currently I'm doing my PhD at Shaite University of Medicine, Berlin. So in my presentation now, I will actually talk about a practical example, an intervention study in rural Bangladesh called Food and Agricultural Approaches to Reducing Malnutrition, or FARM study. And within FARM, my own research focuses on food hygiene and food contamination and its impact on child nutrition and growth. In the last presentation, you heard that Sophie mentioned that 8 principles of communicating climate change effectively. One of the 8 principles is focusing on solutions, not just on doom and gloom. And so I think as part of the discussion on the climate crisis and global health, we wanted to talk about FARM because FARM study is an example of a complex intervention and sustainable solutions to malnutrition that can contribute to climate change adaptation and resilience building. I will give my presentation in English, but my slides are in German. And I would like to thank my colleagues, Dr. Anna Muller, helping me prepare the slides. So I hope they will help you to follow the talk better. So this is actually a representation of 7 billion people living on Earth today. In recent decades, billions of people have moved out of poverty following this development path. Globally, and especially in Asia, infant mortality has gone down sharply, life expectancy has increased. However, 1 billion people still live in extreme poverty, and infant mortality, malnutrition are also still widespread in Asia and Africa. So looking at this development path, we can see that the improvement in health and well-being showed on the horizontal axis has been achieved by a massive consumption in resources and humans' ecological footprint shown in the vertical axis. And this is now leading to global environmental changes such as climate change, biodiversity loss, pollution, food insecurity, and increasing natural disaster. Although the poorest population contribute least to this problem, but they are the first and the most they are the first and most affected by the situation. And you can say that climate change makes existing health problems worse for this population. And today, climate change is among the key drivers that actually perpetuates poverty. So now we have double challenges to meet in the long run. One is stopping environmental degradation, and second is improving the health and well-being of this poorest. Therefore, we need a profound shift to change the direction of this environmentally destructive path towards a healthy and sustainable societies. And we need to get to this lower right direction of to achieve good health for all at low environmental cost as targeted in Sustainable Development Goals. And our research project FARM in Bangladesh wants to contribute in this direction by reducing malnutrition and improving health in a sustainable way and making those poor populations more climate resilient. in my next few slides, I will actually describe about malnutrition, especially undernutrition. So it will be actually help us to understand our project examples later. So let's look at the magnitude of malnutrition first. In simple terms, malnutrition refers to an impairment of health resulting from insufficient access or unbalanced intake of energy and or nutrients. It can be classified further into undernutrition and overnutrition. And today, every country in the world faces at least one form of malnutrition. According to the Global Nutrition Report 2020, about 2 million people worldwide are overweight, which is almost 1 in 3 people. And already 4 million children under the age of 5 suffers from obesity. On the other hand, nearly 50 million children under 5 are too thin, and nearly 150 million children under 5 are too short for their age, and 2 billion people worldwide are suffering from micronutrient deficiencies. So, as I mentioned, undernutrition is a part of malnutrition. In undernutrition, we can roughly distinguish between acute and chronic malnutrition. I will discuss in the later slides. So acute malnutrition is the result of severe energy and protein deficiency caused by lack of adequate food to eat or by an acute infections, for example, severe diarrheal illness, which result in suddenly reduced energy intake because it cannot be absorbed by the intestine. And acute malnutrition also leads to gastric weight loss in those affected. So you can actually recognize acute malnourished child when a child is too thin or his or her weight is too low for the child's height. On the other hand, chronic malnutrition is different. It is caused firstly by unbalanced diet or lack of a diverse diet over a very long period of time. Secondly, it can be caused by chronic and recurrent infections, especially in the intestinal tract, that can lead to reduced nutrient intake. And third, maternal illness or malnutrition during pregnancy can also lead to an inadequate supply of nutrients to the child in the mother's utero and during breastfeeding period. And you can recognize chronic malnutrition in a child when a child is too small or the height is too low for a child age. However, compared to acute malnutrition, chronic malnutrition is often not recognizable. Therefore, chronic malnutrition is also known as hidden hunger. So what are the consequences of malnutrition? The consequences of malnutrition or undernutrition are fatal. Children with acute malnutrition or undernutrition have an increased risk of infections and mortality. In fact, 45% of the total global mortality of under 5 children is a result of undernutrition. On the other hand, chronic malnutrition often result in delayed and impaired physical and cognitive development of child during the first 1,000 days of his or her life. First 1,000 days starts from the conception of a child in the mother's utero to first 2 years of age. And this is a very important period for a child's growth and development. And chronic malnutrition also leads to underdevelopment of the immune system, resulting in a lifelong increased risk of infection and increased risk of chronic diseases such as diabetes and obesity in adulthood. But most importantly, the damage from chronic malnutrition is often irreversible, and it affects a person for life. So they can never fully realize their full potential. But these lack of food or micronutrient deficiency. These are actually the direct causes of undernutrition. If you take a closer look at the problem, you will see that numerous factors actually play a role as intermediate causes or structural causes. For example, poverty, insufficient food security, poor healthcare, poor hygiene, and poor living condition or access to healthcare. These are actually play as intermediate factors. And societal, environmental, and global policy or policies in a country and the financial resources available to a country or the population can also play a role, which can be described as structural causes of undernutrition. The environmental and climate change act as a great multiplier, so to speak, amplifying the problems and causes of undernutrition at all levels. So what can be done to address undernutrition? Undernutrition can be actually addressed at each of these levels. For example, direct causes can be addressed through nutrition-specific interventions like treatment of acute malnutrition or nutrition supplements like iron or zinc supplement, promoting breastfeeding behavior or introducing complementary feeding, promoting health and nutrition of young children. These also fall under the, you can address direct causes through this nutrition-specific intervention. These interventions often work very quickly and are relatively easy to apply. In acute situations such as famine, they often lead to a rapid improvement in the situation, but are not necessarily long-term or sustainable. On the other hand, nutrition-specific program, you can address the intermediate causes through nutrition-specific programs like agriculture and food security, improving sanitation and hygiene, improving health services and family planning services, early childhood development, empowering girls and women, access to education. You can target this intervention to improve the intermediate causes of undernutrition. And to address the structural cause, we can create or strengthening an enabling environment that actually takes place at a higher level with the government of a country or through the cooperation of states or governmental organization. But this nutrition sensitive intervention and creating an enabling environment or addressing structural causes are much more complex than nutrition specific intervention. So they do not work quickly, but rather in a medium to long term. And they are quite costly, especially at the beginning. But more importantly, they have the potential for sustainability. And FARM is an example of a sustainable nutrition sensitive intervention. So what is FARM? FARM stands for Food and Agricultural Approaches to Reducing Malnutrition. It is an intervention trial in Bangladesh. Bangladesh is located, this is the map of Bangladesh, and it is located in a low-lying delta between Himalayas and the Bay of Bengal. And FARM project actually located in the northeast of Bangladesh. So to give you an idea of the study area, here are some pictures. Our study area is a geographically difficult area because it is regularly flooded during the rainy season. The lowlands where people grow rice during dry season are mostly under water in the rainy season. And then people often need boats to get around. So what is the situation in Bangladesh, the overall situation? In Bangladesh, 17% women are underweight. That means their body mass index is lower than 18.5, which is the normal limit. And 1/3 of all children are affected by chronic undernutrition that I discussed earlier. That means they are too short for their age, or they have micronutrient deficiency. Due to the predominantly rice-based diet, they lack important vitamins and minerals for healthy growth. In this country, most people are small farmers, and with more, Bangladesh as a population is more than 160 million, and with 160 million people, Bangladesh is an extremely densely populated country with twice as many people living on less than half of the land area as in Germany. And as I mentioned earlier, rice is the main staple, and the diet is mostly rice-based. And the country, although the country is now self-sufficient in rice production, but does not producing enough fruits and vegetables. And because most of the country is at sea level, it is highly vulnerable to climate change. The frequency of climate disasters are already increasing. So this is the component of farm. So the farm intervention. Okay, sorry. Yeah, it's good. So this is a very common food plate in Bangladesh. I mentioned earlier, mostly rice-based and often with very little vegetables, curry or lentils, sometimes a little bit fish or meat. But there are several solutions to improve this diet and address related undernutrition. As I mentioned earlier, one can think of a direct intervention and provide micronutrient supplements to sprinkle over the rice and improve its quality, or use a genetic engineering to breed micronutrient like vitamin A or zinc into the rice. Or one can take nutrition sensitive approach and could help people to grow and eat more vegetables, fruits and animal source food, and ensure a diverse diet of women and children, which is more sustainable in the long run. So within farm, we are actually evaluating the homestead food production program implemented by Helen Keller International in Bangladesh. It is a very complex intervention with several components that should work synergistically. For example, home gardening and poultry rearing to produce nutrition food. It also has a component of nutrition education to ensure that those foods are eaten by women and young children, and young children start having diverse food from the right age. And it also includes hygiene promotion to reduce infections, marketing training to sell surplus foods, etc., that we will discuss later. So Helen Keller International has long been doing such nutrition sensitive project in Bangladesh, and in their homestead food production program, they actually work with local NGOs to help women to establish year-round production in home garden, production of vegetables and fruits in home gardens. And so they implement this with women's group of about 15 participants, and within a group they select one woman as model farmer, and in her garden they usually do the training, they grow seeds, and women groups also learn composting and biological pest control. Here are some of the pictures of training with the women group in the villages. In addition to fruits and vegetable production training, women also get training in poultry rearing. They receive marketing training so they can sell any surplus produce and earn some small income. And they're there are also regular courtyard or group session with women and their household members on how to eat during pregnancy, how to feed young children, and as well as education on hygiene and healthcare. This is some of the pictures of some proud gardeners from farm project in their gardens at the harvest. So what was the aim of farm? The aim of the farm is to provide a scientific evidence that a complex homestead food production program with women's group over the first 1,000 days of their children's lives can improve nutrition in women and children, reduce infection, and lead to better growth and development of the children. So what we are measuring to create this evidence, in principle, this is actually the conceptual framework of farm. And in principle, we are measuring indicators along all impact pathway. So the top blue boxes are the components of the intervention that I mentioned, like training on gardens, poultry rearing, hygiene intervention, etc. And these are meant to influence the green boxes, which are the food availability, increase income, improve hygiene behavior, and which will actually impact the two main causes of undernutrition. One is food intake, I mentioned earlier, and another is infections, and also improve maternal nutrition that leads to improved growth of the child during pregnancy, and finally, it affects the child motor development and mental development within the first 1,000 days of their life. So now I will talk about the hygiene component of farm, which is actually my research area. So in 2017, farm started its intervention in 2015, and in 2017, it became clear that the hygiene component in farms need to be strengthened. So I wanted to ask that why hygiene is important for nutrition.
Yes, and you can see the question in the Menti as well. So if you're going onto the link, then you can type it in what you're thinking about.
Which link?
It's for the audience, so they can
okay, so you
give us answers, and maybe you can say what's the right thing, or yes, and then we can look into the Mentimeter in the end, so we can see which was the answers from the audience, which were the answers from the audience. Yes.
I can continue with my slides, right?
Yes.
Okay. So why hygiene is important for nutrition? As I mentioned earlier, that malnutrition is caused, one, by an unbalanced diet with too few nutrients, or contact with too many bacteria, resulting in frequent diarrhea and constant loss of micronutrients, which can be prevented by actually good hygiene. So hygiene is, otherwise, how many good food you eat, how much good food you eat doesn't matter if you hit by infections so frequently. So good hygiene is very important to ensure good nutrition. So therefore, in 2017, an additional training on food hygiene was integrated within farm with a focus on changing hygiene behaviors, especially in the food preparation and child feeding. And under the slogan of Safe, Nutritious Food, Ideal Family. We promoted these 6 behaviors. One of them is actually improve the dietary diversity for the children and women. And we also promote hand washing, utensil cleaning before food preparation and child feeding, and safe storage of food, and reheating of stored food before feeding the child. So we used a behavior change approach for this food hygiene interventions. We use emotional drivers like disgust of dirt and disease. And we also display the desire to raise the offspring healthy and well, and the pride in parents when a child has grown up well and achieved good grades in school. So we use those emotional drivers to promote these behaviors. And we conducted, we roll out this intervention. In addition to homestead food production, we also added some additional group meetings and household visit to promote these hygiene behaviors. And we conducted very interactive group activities with games, discussion, and stories. For example, in one of our group events, in this picture, you can see that we used glow germ, which is a gel that actually visible under UV light, just to demonstrate the women how germ can actually pass from hand to food and then to mouth or stomach of a children or a person who ate the food. And so in addition, we also actually do one-to-one counseling or consultation with each women's household to help families change their physical setting, especially their food preparation or kitchen area. So we help them to demarcate their cooking area with colorful flags of promoted behaviors that demonstrate. We also demonstrate them ideal food hygiene practice, demonstrate them balanced food plate to promote this behavior. And we also place these stickers or buntings or flags in a way in their house, so it actually acts as a visual cues to practice appropriate behavior for the family members. So this food hygiene intervention leads to the FEED study within farm, and FEED stands for Food Hygiene to Reduce Environmental and Trade Dysfunction. And in FEED study, we want to find out whether better household and food hygiene intervention lead to actually lower incidence of germ and diarrheal disease, and thus it reduce chronic undernutrition and improve child growth. So that is our aim within FEED. So to do this, we are actually studying the food hygiene behaviors of mothers and the household members who care for this child, which is my individual research area. We are also measuring infant food contamination by bacteria. We're also looking at intestinal infections and inflammation and the evaluation of the microbiome, which has a significant impact on our health. But it also microbiome is also very vulnerable to external environmental influences. So we are also looking at those things. Now I will actually talk about, just briefly mention about other interdisciplinary research project we are currently having on farm. For example, together with experts from Switzerland's Ithaca Institute, we actually tested a new fertilizer method using plant charcoal and urine, which is also a very environmental solution to improve the fertilizer of your land. So we tested these. Then we are also working with geologists from Heidelberg University on arsenic in groundwater and researching its effect on child growth. One of our colleagues actually is looking at the mold toxin in food and its effect on the growth of the child in mother's womb. And it is, this study is actually happening with collaboration with University of Munster. And I mentioned that in our study area, I mean, it's actually very common having flood during rainy season, which is July to September. But in 2017, the rainy season actually came 2 months early when the rice was still on the field and it was green. It was not the time of harvesting. So many households during that untimely flooding, many households actually lost almost their entire harvest. And now Sophie was here. She presented before, and she is actually looking at the consequences of this flooding on food security and nutrition, and how people actually cope with such things. So, and within farm, we are also conducting research on gender issues, causes of anemia and depression in pregnancy and lactation. So many studies actually going on within farm. And now if I summarize, then I will say that actually farm is relevant to several sustainable reduce hunger, improve health and gender equality for people. It also aim to ensure clean water, access to clean water for the people, and it's aimed to improve the climate change adaptation, soil conservation, and biodiversity preservation. It all. So if we again and sum up, farm is a complex example of nutrition sensitive intervention, and it is it could be a possible solution against undernutrition that improve health as well as actually benefits environment. But in Sophie's presentation, Sophie talks about co-benefits, and farm is actually a very good example of a win-win solution for health and environment. And as I mentioned earlier, that it is a project that ensure climate adaptation and strengthening resilience. And the one strong point of farm is its thorough scientific evaluation and transdisciplinary collaboration that I mentioned in my presentation. So this is all from me. Thank you. These are all of our collaborators for farm. So thank you. And if you want to know more about farm, you can actually see Charité websites, and also Potsdam Institute of Climate Impact Research. You can also find information there about our projects, and you can also reach out to us. Yeah, so thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Shafinas, for sharing this project with us. Yes, I would say we can go into our Q&A and look what questions came in. So yes, maybe at first, what is the most beautiful thing you do in your research work? Where do you have the most fun to do?
For me, I was actually involved with before coming to Germany, I was involved with the research project in the field. So I actually experienced a lot of practical experience implementing the project in the field and communicating with the people and seeing their problems firsthand, closely. I think that was really a good experience for me. So I can see that I actually know the both side of the things. I know the research part, and I also actually very aware of the problem in the field and the implementation and things. So yeah, that was a, I would say, great opportunity for me. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. Then the next question, what was the result that shocked you the most of Project Farm, or in your whole time where you did research?
We are also still actually looking at so many of our results. For example, none of the impact that I show you, the conceptual framework, the impact outcome, we are still actually analyzing those results. Those are not actually available at the moment, but we have some primary results. So what I can say from that yes, we see that dietary diversity has improved among the women and children and things, but also for, if I see my research, the food hygiene things, we had a wonderful implementation. I mean, I mentioned that it was engaging, but then we see that the hand hygiene or the food hygiene actually did not actually improve much among this group. And environment, I mean, the household environment actually play a huge role, because when you don't have access to water close to your kitchen, I mean, it's very difficult wash hands every time. And when you have to actually carry water from, you don't have access water within your homestead area, it's very difficult for improving hand hygiene or utensils cleaning. And also we see that the storage of food, because one of our aim was to improve safe storage, and that's also actually difficult due to the weather, because the humid condition, and you don't have any control on that. And people don't have access to, many households don't have access to electricity. And if they don't have freeze or refrigerator, they don't have. So, I mean, safe storage of food is also a challenge. So it's not only actually behavioral problems, it's also a structural problem. It's also an environmental problem. I mean, access to resources or lack of resources. It's also a lot of those things. So it's very complex. I mean, there is no straightforward answer to this. Yeah.
Yeah. We we look onto the resources, but not in the project, but for the project. There is a question about the financial structure of farm, and the question is, do these projects get too low financial help? So is there something you can't do because you don't have the money to make this research, or is it in whole good?
Funding for such type of implementation, research funding is of course always a big, a challenge, because this project also funded by actually German Education and Research Ministry, but there's never actually enough funding for such kinds of project. But I would say also implementation play a role, because it's not only funding. The collaborator you are working in the field, they also play a role on the success of such kind of project, because how they're actually doing the training, how they actually involving the people, all those things also matter. So I won't say that funding was not enough. It was enough funding. It was a 5-year project, and 5 year in the field. So it's a big project. Because many of such project is for 2 years or 3 year funding. So we had funding and we had enough time to implement, but then other components were there, how your collaborator, how the NGO you are working in the field and people you are working in the field, they act or react. Those also actually important for the success of this. Yeah.
Yeah, and then maybe one last question before you can share your last statement to the audience. What is the research work you want to do in the future? What is your big dream maybe to research on?
I'm very interested. I'm doing currently. I'm also doing actually behavior intervention. I mean behavior change intervention research, because within the food hygiene, we actually try to change behaviors through some behavioral approach. And in future, I wanted to focus on that too. And I also wanted to work on climate change. And I want to say that for climate change and hygiene, one thing is actually common, because we have to actually change people's behavior. That's actually important also for climate change. I mean, there's so many things to do at policy level or country level or global level, but also at individual levels, we have to make changes. And I think behavior change is one of the things that we need to address to address the climate change as well. Yeah. So I'm interested to working on that in future. Let's see.
Yeah, okay. Then thank you very much, Shafinas. Thank you too that you understood all my
Oh,
English.
no, thank you.
It's not this bad. Yeah, okay. Then do you want to address the audience and say the last sentences, and when we're finishing this stream and everybody
So thank
can
you. I
go
want
back.
to thank you, Public Climate School, again for having me today, and it's a really nice opportunity and what you are doing, and I think that's great. We can I think two concept is very prominent now. One is ecological footprint and another is ecological handprint. So footprint is when you consume the resources, and handprint when you actually deliver the information or knowledge among the people, and you are doing that. So it's a really good initiatives, and I wish you all the luck, and thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you so much that you were here. We're saying goodbye, and then you can watch the climate talk in English after this session. It starts at 6:15 p.m. With 4 guests and Sibylle Chiari as the moderator. Okay. Have fun with it, and we will go out. Yes. Goodbye.
Thank you. Bye.